So the big summer reveal for Warhammer 40K just popped off, and there is a lot to talk about. But today we're going to focus on the new combat patrols announced for several Space Marine chapters, what you're getting in the box, and if they're really worth it. Let's get right into it. Welcome back to Starhammer. Space Marine fans throughout the Grimdark Galaxy are celebrating Games Workshop recognition of some seemingly forgotten legions. While Space Marines in general are certainly never falling out of style, GW has a tendency to create the majority of popular content around just a couple of chapters, Ultramarines in particular. This isn't really any surprise given how Ultramarines are the poster child of the whole franchise, but it can leave the other Space Marine players maybe feeling a little neglected in terms of representation. I understand it in part, as GW is going to focus on what makes them the most money, their business after all, yet they've not shown a ton of light on chapters such as the White Scars, Imperial Fists, Raven Guard, Salamanders, Iron Hands. You get a character here and there, which they also introduced at the summer show, but players of these chapters are seemingly a second thought. Well, that changed. 5 new combat patrols have been announced for all those legions, and while a couple have the new characters, there's still major tokens of representation on the shelf for these mighty Space Marine chapters and the folks that play them. That's great, I love that for them, but are these combat patrols actually any good? And do they really do a good job of showcasing what the chapter is all about? Let's start this off with the White Scars. Inspired by the nomadic Khan steppe clans of ancient Terra and their ruthlessly fast cavalry units that struck their enemies like lightning, the White Scar Space Marines chapter has kept the spirit of these ancient warriors well into the 41st millennium, specializing in fast attack strategies often mounted upon Outrider bikes, blazing through the front lines, firing their front mounted bolters, and carving through enemy infantry with their chainswords. In their new combat patrol, we definitely see that represented very well. You get a squad of Outrider cavalry bikes, presumably being led by their new character, Saboden Khan, a squad of assault intercessors, and an impulsor transport to get those guys up the field pretty quick. Now we've got no idea what Saboden's cost is gonna be. Closest character we have on a bike is a chaplain for 75, but I imagine since this guy is on a jet bike and not an outrider and he's got that big ass spear and cannon, I wager he's probably gonna be closer to 100 points. Let's assume. An Impulsor is a transport that can carry 7 Tacticus or Phobos Marines, but not Terminators, and comes with a slew of options for guns and gear, as you can see here. A cheap, reliable, quick transport that's perfect for those assault intercessors. It's also got firing deck 6, so all those Marines riding around in it can shoot their pistols out the back as well. Units can also disembark after this transport advances, giving you that extra speed you need to get up the hill and onto a point. That is going to be sitting at 80 points. A squad of assault intercessors is 75 points with the 5 you'll get, and they're basically just normal Space Marines who like to cut things down with a chainsword. The sergeant comes with a few options, able to swap the heavy bolter for a hand flame or a plasma, as well as his chainsword for a thunderhammer, power weapon, or power fist. Each time they make an attack in melee, they reroll 1s, but they can reroll the entire wound roll if their target is on a point. A solid and reliable melee unit, especially for a combat patrol size game, and their ability, along with the Impulsor, really emphasizes the relentless fast attacks of the White Scars. Finally, you've got an Outrider squad clocking in at 80 points. Very fast with twin bolt rifles, heavy bolt pistols, and chainswords, these guys are great for hit and run tactics, which the White Scars are famously fond of. Not very tough, though crazy fast at 12 inches of speed, these guys also add 1 to the strength and damage of their melee attacks, provided they made a charge move beforehand. You're looking at around 335 points for this box, which is well below the 500 point max for combat patrol games. It's not uncommon for these boxes to be a little above or below that mark, as these are supposed to be just very generally balanced boxes that let you get a head start on collecting your army with a little bit of a discount. The average price for these boxes is around $170 depending on where you go, but altogether this box would run you about $238 if you bought everything separately. I've only ever seen White Scars on the table once, and being a thematic list, they never did very well. Very cool. Outriders and Intercessors generally do alright though against standard infantry like other Space Marines, but they get folded very quickly. However, running a lot of Outriders with this new jet bike leader might make them a bit more viable. Super fun unit on the board, but definitely a rule of cool model. I do think this did a pretty damn good job of showcasing the White Scars as a chapter, however. The new character sculpt is sick as hell on top of it, so if you're looking to get into White Scars or just generally want some fast moving units, not a terrible box for a thematic list, it's just not my cup of tea. If you like dragons in the color green, you're gonna love the Salamanders. These guys love to play with fire. After all, they did hunt dragons on their homeworld as a rite of passage. Their combat patrol is very appropriately themed with 1 Outrider ATV for heavy support, enough Infernus Marines to run a full squad or 2 smaller ones, a unit of scary Eradicators, all led by Adrax Agaton. This guy wields only 2 weapons, but they're pretty good. His ranged weapon is a flamer with a ton of attacks at AP 1, provided you roll halfway decently, and he's also got his giant hammer to serve as a solid AT option if it comes down to it. He adds 1 to the wound roll for any unit he's leading on their melee attacks, as well as having the OC of enemies engaged in melee with him. This guy's an absolute melee powerhouse and goes very well with a full stack of Blade Guard vets. As far as the less important people, this box comes with our friends, the Assault Intercessors, for 75 points, and they reroll wound rolls of 1 or the whole roll of 1 point in melee. Infernus Marine is one of my favorite units to run in smaller games. At 90 for 5 or 180 for 10, these Space Marines are packed with Pyroblasters, which are basically beefy flamers. They also force battle shock on enemy infantry they shoot at a -1 penalty. Eradicators are a slept-on AT unit in my opinion. At 100 for 3, these slightly beefier Marines in Gravis armor are packing Melta rifles, with one able to be swapped out for a multi-Melta. Their ability is crazy good, giving them full rerolls on hits, wounds, and damage against monsters, vehicles. Super good against Catan shards, by the way. Lastly, the Invader ATV is a relatively okay fast support unit, which you can run with a Melta as opposed to the Gatling Cannon. It only touches 5 and 8 wounds, is pretty mid, and gets chewed up pretty quickly if not in cover. I find it odd that they would include this, as it really isn't very Salamanders-y. It's got a Melta, so cool I guess. It's also probably one of the dumbest Space Marine kits out there in terms of looks. I never see one of these on the table because they just aren't very optimal, even in casual games. Anyway, it's clocking in at 60 points. Besides the ATV, it's a solid box that'll get you about 515 points. That's a handsome start for a Salamander's army that'll save you quite a bit of money, as it's about 248 for all these models on their own. Easy enough to scrap the ATV for another unit, something like Aggressors, perhaps, and you'll be on your merry way. This box is themed surprisingly well, and unlike White Scars, thematic lists such as this are actually very effective and can put a lot of hate downfield if the synergy is right, like it is in this box. They are very short range though, so keep that in mind. Run Firestorm Assault Detachment to advance and shoot, or get dug into no man's land as quickly as possible. Salamanders, eating well with this one. The chicken feather covered Raven Guard are sneaking into the video next. Masters of stealth tactics, the Raven Guard are swiftly striking before fading back into the shadows, all while maintaining excellent but subtle control over the battlefield. Their combat patrol is pretty reflective of this, focusing on stealth, support, and mobility. Starting off with jump back intercessors at 90 for 5. These are standard Marines with the ability to deep strike and deal mortals on the charge, which can be really handy when fighting tougher units. They're rocking heavy bolt pistols and chain swords, but do have the option for a couple of plasma pistols and a power fist or power weapon as well. Not a lot to say about these guys. I think Vanguard Veterans with a chaplain is a bit better, but these are 5 points cheaper, and for a combat patrol, a nice inclusion. The Invictor Tactical Warsuit is not a unit you see very much of. Previously included in the Space Wolves Combat Patrol of 9th edition, it makes a more appropriate appearance in this box. Sort of like a baby dreadnought, but without the coffin, it makes for a pretty solid support unit for the infiltrators included in this box as well. Coming in at 125 points, it has quite a few weapons on it and can swap out the cannon with an Iron Hail autocannon. As you can see, it also has a very powerful melee attack profile that's great for literally punching through heavy vehicles with ease. It also gets a crazy 8-inch scout move at the start of the game and has a very unique support ability. Once returned to your opponent's shooting phase, when a friendly Phobos infantry model within 6 inches is the target of an attack, your warsuit can shoot back at that enemy unit, the shot at your infantry, as if it was your shooting phase. The caveat is that you can only shoot at the attacking unit and only if they're an eligible target. Now this guy has 5 ranged weapons, and they're all pretty solid anti-infantry guns, with several juicy keywords on top of it. So you might get lucky and just shred that attacking unit entirely on their own turn. Pretty cool, right? Finally, you got a squad of infiltrators coming in at 200 since they're full 10 med stack. There's regular Space Marines in terms of stats, but their bolters get the heavy keyword. Not very fancy on the surface, but these guys have infiltrator, and that means you can deploy them anywhere in the field, provided they're within 9 inches of any enemy models. These guys are meant to be put on points or in strategic spots to harass infantry units and stay there. That's where the heavy keyword comes in, as you'll get to add 1 to your hit rolls when doing so. They also have Omni Scramblers as an ability which prevents your opponents from deploying units within 12 inches of them out of reserves. That can seriously fuck with someone's strategic reserves plans and allow you to put some pretty good area denial in the midfield from scary units like Terminators or Primarchs. They can also be equipped with a Helix Gauntlet for a 6-up Vilna Paint, as well as an Infiltrator Comms Array, which lets you roll a d6 when targeting them with a stratagem and gaining a CP back on a 5-up. Box is around 415 points of models, which isn't half bad. Got a lot of utility and control in it, which fits Raven Guard quite nicely, and the new Raven Guard character unit is not included, however, so you're gonna have to pick him up separately. I think it's a really solid combat patrol, and it does a really excellent job of showcasing the Raven Guard and gives you a solid point to kick off of with powerful infantry and a great supporting vehicle to supplement them. It would cost around $235 for all these separately, so it's a pretty good deal as far as combat patrols go. The Praetorians of Terra set up their defensive line in our next combat patrol for the Imperial Fists. One of the first founding chapters, the Imperial Fists were experts in the art of siegecraft, particularly defense, and helped hold the line in the twilight of the Horus Heresy against the traitor forces at the Siege of Terra. While they've lost their Primarch, they've certainly not lost any of his loyalty, tenacity, or ingenuity. To start off, we got a squad of company heroes for 105 points. All about holding a point, commanding the battle, these veteran squads have a decent level of weapons to help stay on the objective with a +1 to OC while their ancient model is with them, a -1 to wound on them while the character is with them. But these guys must be led by a character, as they're a command squad after all. So the box includes captain as well, worth 80 points. And he's got his own plethora of weapons and stuff that you can deal with. Captain's a solid unit, and you can never go wrong with one of them. They also reduce the cost of stratagems used on them by 1, and they can go Super Saiyan with their finest hour ability, which adds 3 to melee attacks and dev wounds. Being as how this guy can also have a Power Fist or Master Crafter power weapon, that can make him pretty lethal. Up next, we got Terminator Squad for 170 points. A beefy unit excelling in teleport strikes and being bullet sponges, Terminators are excellent Space Marine units for both offense and defense. Armed with stone bolters and the options of an assault cannon, missile rack, or heavy flamer for range, these guys can put down an obscene volume of fire when within half range. You can also swap out the Power Fist for Chain Fist for that anti-vehicle keyword, but I found the Power Fist to work just fine. It's really just a preference. The Sergeant can swap out his stuff for a power weapon and whatnot as well. They have a cool teleport homer ability allowing you to plop a token on the battlefield and teleport deep strike a little better than normal, and with rapid ingress for 0 CP, surprising your opponent, potentially throwing a wrench in their strategy. They also add 1 to the hit roll whenever they attack an oath target. Being as how Imperial Fists are Codex compliant, they'd also get 1 to wound on oath targets as well. Makes Terminators an insanely good combat unit. Some more beefy boys are included with heavy intercessors, packing heavy bolt rifles and 1 heavy bolter, should you so choose, for 100 points. A reliable long-range shooting unit, these guys can dish out plenty of heat and take it too with their toughness 6 and 3 wounds apiece. Their ability is also pretty snazzy, allowing you to add 1 to your save made against damage 1 weapons, provided you're on a point you control. I like to keep these guys on my home point and take shots that way, but the guns have assault, so you can get them out the field quick and to a more strategic position if you'd rather stick to your home objective and call it a day. Which leads us into the last part of the box, a 5-man intercessor squad for 80 points. Not much to say here, standard infantry of the Space Marines, mostly packing bolt guns with a few different options like grenade launchers and power weapons for the sergeant leading them. They have sticky objectives as an ability, which you can never go wrong with, and they double their attacks against 1 targeted enemy unit in their shooting phase with their bolters. Putting it all together, you're looking at about 535 points in this box, which is more than enough. Every unit here is pretty good and well-rounded, and would be a good starter box for any Space Marine army, to be honest. Not a huge fan of the company heroes being here, however. I think that a Blade Guard unit would probably be a little better, but generally speaking, this box is a good box in both theme and usage. Separately, this all cost about $226, so you're getting quite the discount with this one. So what do you get when a Space Marine chapter and the Adeptus Mechanicus love each other very much? You get the Iron Hands, a loyalist, black-armored, stoic force of tech nerds who also believe that the flesh is weak. That belief was probably reinforced by the Horus Heresy, after the Chaos-corrupted traitors crippled the Legion at Isfahan 5, and Fulgrim killed their Primarch Ferrus Manus, though the Iron Hands would have you think differently. Anyway, their combat patrol is interesting. Starting off with a Tech Marine for 55 points, these guys are your vehicle engineers. Standard Space Marine minus that 2-up save, and his attack options aren't half bad. He has lone op when within 3 inches of the vehicle, buffs a targeted friendly vehicle while restoring D3 wounds at within 3 inches, and gets a buff to the number of melee attacks on his axe if a friendly vehicle is destroyed within 12 inches of him. Generally, not a bad unit at all, but I question his point in this box. More on that in a bit. You got a full stack of heavy intercessors for 200 points. Not going to rehash them since we just went over it, but they've got those nice heavy bolt rifles and stats we know and love. Lastly, and most strangely, you've got 2 Firestrike servo turrets for 150 points. I guess these weren't selling enough models. I never see these things on the board or the shelves for that matter. Anyhow, they're not bad in terms of stats except for that disgusting 3-inch move, but they're literally gun emplacements that Marines have to pick up and move, so I guess it makes sense. They do pack quite a punch and can reach out and touch someone with those range profiles in either weapon. They come with a last talent by default, but you can swap that to an autocannon for more consistent damage. They also overwatch on 4-up, which makes them great for sitting on your back point as screeners or long-range fire support. The thing is, you're not going to want to have your tech marine back there with him because he's not going to do anything. The heavy intercessors are fine, I guess, but if they were going to lean into the vehicle tech thing, they probably could have included like a Predator Destructor, a Ballistic Dread, Gladiator, Lancer, and still get a similar level of points and more utility. Though the issue of balance would come up because something like a Ballistus is going to do infinitely more on the board than an Impulsor would, for example. This is why you don't see vehicles very often in combat patrols, because you get into this really sticky situation. Points-wise, it's fine either way. Theoretically, it works. But in terms of the amount of violence the turrets can dish out compared to a Gladiator or a Ballistus, the math works out to probably being a little more balanced with the turrets. Same with the wound pools and such as well. You get around 405 points in this box, which is okay. Just generally a little hard to balance out vehicles and monsters in small games like this, so I get why they went with the turrets. It would run you about 246 if bought separately. Does this do a good job of showcasing the Iron Hands, however? Not really. It's mid. The box is just generally very limiting in terms of how it can be played, and having such slow units is going to make you trapped on your half of the board pretty quickly by faster armies like Emperor's Children. Again, hard to balance out a chapter like this in a combat patrol, but I think if they swapped out the turrets for Ballistus that can actually move around and stuff, that would be a little better for the buyer on the tabletop. So the big question, are these boxes worth your dollars? I'd say yes, except for the Iron Hands one. That's pretty ass. Besides that, these are all fantastic. The White Scars one is a little lackluster, but still reflected the spirit of the chapter very well. Salamanders and Raven Guard are spot on, and Imperial Fists got theirs mostly right. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. I'd say GW did a good job for the most part. Again, I really think the Iron Hands one is a stinker, but I think I understand why, and the White Scars one, while not spectacular, yeah, it'll get the job done in Combat Patrol. These are great starting boxes. I think it's a very good time to be a Space Marines player right now, especially a new one. They're also just good boxes if you want to bolster any Space Marine army with reinforcements, especially that Imperial Fist one, very well rounded. So grab a bolter in your favorite combat patrol and head out to claim the stars for the Emperor. That's it for this one, y'all. What do you think of the new boxes? You excited, disappointed, maybe somewhere in the middle? If you're new, which one do you think is coolest? Let me know in the comments below. As always, drop a like if you like it, subscribe if you really liked it, hit that notification bell, and check out the community tab for shitposts and shenanigans. I'll see y'all in the next one.